So welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to the meeting. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody here today. First, what we're going to do is just do a roll call. Ms. Truba, can you do a roll call?
Absolutely. Steele? Here. Ms. Gilman? Here. Ms. Hayes? Here. Mr. McCarthy?
If I overstep, okay?
He's here.
Yeah.
Mr. McCarthy. Here.
Ms. McGovern?
Sorry.
Here. Ms. Paramus? Here. Ms. Talarico? Here. Ms. Tortorella? Here. Mr. Weinstein?
Here. Are you guys a little scrunched down? We need to move this down a little bit. Okay, I'll just move this here. This is for everybody's entertainment, to watch this musical chairs here. Okay, we're gonna stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was a very enthusiastic.
Yes, yes.
That's huge.
Okay, you want to move down? You want to keep moving down here a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
move
think they
down.
want it.
Yeah, trust me, we do.
They don't wish to.
Sure. Victor. Vic, could you open the door back there? I think people think it's a little hot in here. Okay, so from a president's report, so this last week, I went to see the art show at Dow Avenue. Listened to some Scooby-Doo, Where Are You Singing, which was fun. And then I was fortunate enough to see Grease on Sunday. So I had a lot of fill of non-sports related entertainment. So it was great stuff to see. I do want to say it was really nice seeing all the excitement in the schools and all the kids kind of just having a really good time at Dow Avenue. Running around playing, getting into some kind of trouble, but not enough trouble to cause any harm, but just really running around the halls and being so proud of the work that they've done. And I thought that was just a fantastic sight to see. So I haven't seen that in a while. So great to be part of that. I think that's it for me. Do we have a student representative here tonight? Online, maybe, Ms. Conway?
Let me just check the attendees. Hold on, please.
Okay, thank you.
President Weinstein, I don't see them in attendance. I'll keep my eye out for them though.
Great, thank you, thank you. Yeah, just send me just feel free to chime in if they do show up, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Dr. Stankus, would you like to do the superintendent's report?
I absolutely would love to do the superintendent's
thank you.
report. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on how wonderful it is to see real live activity going on in our
Yep.
schools. And it's a wonderful thing to see absolutely every day. So we have a few students with us tonight. It's very exciting. They're in the, they're all fashion, matched, which is wonderful. It's a good thing. But we also have, we're going to start though first with one of our high school students who is with us tonight, who took part in the Monmouth Teen Arts Festival, Monmouth County Teen Arts Festival. And so Monmouth County Teen Arts is in its 50th year, and this year's festival's theme was community. All in capital bold with an exclamation point at the end of it. Students could submit work for the festival that encompassed that theme. And the festival took place at Brookdale County College back in mid-March. And this year, the individual that we're honoring this evening chose the discipline of photography. And it was a beautiful photograph of her dog on the beach. And there is no better photograph than the dog on the beach. And I'm going to pass this around. I'm going to just show here because you guys can see. Lovely reflection. Lovely thing. I'm going to pass this down.
What's his name again?
Where is it? The dog name?
Sammy. What kind of dog? Is that a poodle? Cockapoo, same thing.
Very
Okay,
nice.
great. A wonderful photo and a terrific acknowledgement. And Mr. Zupko is the student's teacher. Mr. Trankina is the supervisor of that area. I think he's here, right? So Derek, do you want to come up for a sec? And the person who submitted this and was one of the winners there was Julia Highland. Julia. And if you could, once step in your feet there. And now you want to get in there for a shot? Yeah. I want to take a shot with that. I'm not kidding. No. I
Alex,
love that.
Alex, do you want to be in there
Maybe
too?
we should, Julia's the photographer. Maybe she should be taking a shot. Very nice, very nice. Congratulations. Julia. And if you want, are you available to come over and take pictures of my dog? I'm not really kidding. I'm not just, so anyway. So great job. Congratulations. All right, next up, we have, that phrase, stay calm. Stay calm, whatever, put
Keep
after
calm,
it, right?
keep
Keep calm, stay calm, keep calm. It's all the same. Well, did you guys invent that? No, you should have. You probably have a lot of money right now.
I like the matter of fact.
Yeah, no. So we have a group of students at Ocean Township Elementary School who I think on their own, right, of their own initiative, right, created the Relax Club. This really sounds like a club I need to be a part of, big time. So this was created through the efforts of these students, and I'll announce their names in a moment. All in fourth grade at Ocean Township Elementary, and their teachers, Miss Flanagan. And their initiative is part of a steam tank idea project that they are in the process of completing. And the Relax Club's purpose is to provide a place for students to come and talk about their feelings and relax and relieve stress through activities. And the club meets once a week on Fridays during recess. So you mean kids give up their recess to come hang out in the club? That must be pretty good if people are willing to give up recess. So the club meets once a week, as I said. The club is open to all third and fourth grade students, and those interested in participating must sign up in advance, and there's 5 students per class that are permitted to attend. So it's a really terrific idea, and working, as I said, Miss Flanagan worked with you, and also Miss Tina Conti, our SEL coach, he's in the back over there, and also Miss Whalen, our guidance counselor, worked with you all to get this up and running, right? So that's fantastic. So our participants here this evening, and I think Ms. Lepusnik is here and has some certificates for you, right? Is, let's see, where are you? There you are. Caitlin Barnes. Caitlin. Yep, head on over there. Addison Mara. Addison. Riley Olson. And Savannah Passerat. So let's get a group shot, and parents, if you want to. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Jess, get up. We can move the thing. Podium. Podium.
A little bit more. Give me 3, 2, 1.
Alex, can you have them move their certificates down and see their shirts? And
Yeah, let's do the shirt.
I know, sorry. Yeah. They worked hard on those shirts.
Go ahead, Mr.
Come on.
Can you be in it too with us?
With the podium. Here, let me look the podium. When I get there. Yes, Tommy, you got it.
Yeah.
So that's outstanding accomplishment and that's wonderful. And is it too late to get in for this Friday? Oh, wait, we're off this Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, when we return, who do I contact to make an appointment to come in? Ms. Whalen? Okay, I need a lot of stress relaxation techniques.
I would like you to put them in the yoga session.
Yeah.
And take many pictures and tweet it out.
Well, that might lead to a workers' compensation claim, so that might be a good idea. So anyway, so thank you very much for taking the initiative and leading this movement. It's a wonderful thing, something you should be very proud of. I know we're very proud of you. Keep it going, keep it going. It's a wonderful thing. So, we're about to have a bunch of presentations.
Which-
So.
Which may or may not be interesting to you.
So you're
I would-
very
I would-
welcome to
I would
stay.
either may not probably.
But- You're very welcome to stay, but if you have homework or anything.
Yeah.
That means you guys can.
This would be the time to leave if you want.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, very nice.
Good job, mom and dad.
They're getting huge. They're getting gigantic.
Miss,
What are you feeding these kids? They're getting gigantic. Oh my gosh, making me feel old now.
I have no.
Thank you, Dr. Stanquist. Ms. Schubert, would you like to have,
In the interest of time, I'd like to speak after, but Mr. Griff is on, and he's going to discuss the demographic survey that was utilized to help with the budgeting process.
Yep.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to switch the agenda around a little bit, let him go first, and then we could carry on with my report.
Outstanding idea.
Okay. Mary Ann, could you,
We gotta get it from the work meeting, right? It's not on.
Yeah, it's on the working, right.
could you put up the presentation from the work meeting? Thank you.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks for being.
Okay, I lost half my audience, I see, but at least some people hung around, either by choice or not so. So this evening, I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about the demographic study that was completed for your school district back in March. Next, please. So I represent statistical forecasting. I'm the executive director. We've been working with school districts for almost the last 25 years. We performed many of these types of demographic studies for school districts in the New York metropolitan area. Over 200 school districts we've worked with. We are the demographic consultant to the New York City Board of Ed. We've been working for them for the last 16 years, and they're the largest school district in the nation. This is the only kind of work we do. Next, please. This is just a little bit of a bio from myself. Real quick, I have a doctorate from Rutgers University in educational statistics and measurement from the Graduate School of Ed. I still publish on this topic around the country, and I testify as an expert witness in school demography and court cases, usually between districts who want to get a divorce from each other. Next, please. So briefly, this study is quite long, but I'm going to try to just summarize the main points of what we did. Most people think of a demographic study as projecting enrollments, and certainly that was something we did here for the next 5 years. We also looked at Ocean Township's population trends, both historic and what's projected to happen in the future, demographic characteristics of the community and its age structure, birth counts, which help to project kindergarten students, and fertility rates of women. We looked at the historical enrollments of the district over time for the last decade, not only district-wide, but by grade configuration school, and also by race and poverty status to see if there's any differences amongst the schools in race and poverty. We looked at the building capacities and compared them to the current and projected enrollments to see if you have ample room or a shortage of seating going forward. And we also contacted the planning department in town to see if there's any new housing starts that might impact the enrollment projections. Next. So this slide is showing the township's population over time. You can see to the left of the vertical line is all census data. So the census is putting you just shy of 28,000 people in 2020. Everything to the right of the vertical line is from the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and they're an agency that projects populations, but those populations you see to the right were based on the 2010 census. So my thinking is once these new projections come out, that may change a little bit, but you can see in the last 10, 20 years, there really hasn't been much of a change in the population in the township. Next, please. So this is just showing what the demographic profile is of the community. It's sort of for people who are not familiar with your township. So you're almost 70% white. The next two races that are the largest are Hispanic at around 11% and Black African American at 9%. From 2010, the white population declined from 75%. So it's right now you have a declining white population and an increasing Hispanic and Black population, but that's common around the country. It's not unique to you. The median age is higher than that of the state. The foreign-born population is a little bit lower than that of the state. The biggest sources are from Haiti and Brazil. With respect to education, about 45% have a bachelor's degree or higher, which is slightly higher than the state. And the median household income is about $10,000 more than the state. If I had to characterize your community of the many that I do, I would say you're just around average with respect to socioeconomic status and maybe just slightly above. 11,300 housing units in the township, which is an awful lot. 71% are either single family attached or detached. Attached would be a condo or a townhouse. About a third are renter occupied, which is similar to that of the state. And the median value of an owner occupied unit is $456,000. Next, please. This is just showing where all the schools are, the 5 schools in the township. Next. So our GIS analyst created this map showing the elementary attendance areas for the 3 elementary schools. The gray regions are either commercial areas or age-restricted developments that do not send to an attendance zone. Next, please. So the enrollment in the district as of October 15th, and that's always the date we use, that's the census day, if you want to say it, for the school district, was 3221. And I've been working with your district, I think this is the 4th or 5th time now, and your enrollments have been declining for the past 20 years, since 2002-03. And I have to say that's very unusual to see a decline for that long of a period of time. In the last decade alone, your enrollment has dropped by about 576 students from 3,800 approximately in the 12-13 year. We use something called the cohort survival ratio method to project enrollments 5 years out, and that's approved by the DOE, and I'll explain that in a moment. Next, please. Okay, this is showing the enrollment decline over time. You can see it's just been going straight down. Next. This slide is showing the elementary, middle, or intermediate school in your case, and high school enrollments for the last decade. The one on top is elementary, and you can see the decline going through the 1920 year. The increase in the last 2 years is due to the expansion of the pre-kindergarten program. If the pre-kindergarten program did not happen, in the expansion that is, you probably would have very either stable or slightly declining enrollment at that configuration. But the middle and the high school have declined as well over the last 10 years, almost 300 students at the intermediate level and 227 students at the high school. Next, please. So this method that I just mentioned a moment ago, the cohort survival ratio method, is fairly simple. What we do is we look at the survival rate of students from one grade to the next over time, and you have 13 grade progressions, starting with birth to kindergarten and ending in 11th to 12th. So I give a simple example that if you have 100 first graders in the 20-21 school year and they become 95 second graders the next year as they move up, the survival rate is 95 over 100 or 0.95. And we do this progression for all the 13 grade levels as well as going back 10 years. So if you have ratios that are above 1, you're gaining students, which is inward migration. If it's below 1, you're losing students, which is outward migration. So of the 13 possible ratios, we compute an average of 4 or 5 years to kind of smooth out any outliers. 12 of the 13 of your ratios are below 1, which means that you have outward migration and are losing students. So it all kind of makes sense when you start peeling away the onion here. And we apply these average ratios to the most current enrollments and assume those ratios are going to hold constant over the next 5 years. And that's how your enrollments are projected. Next. So you have a phenomenon here called negative kindergarten replacement. It's happened the last 9 years. And that's when the number of students entering the district as kindergarten students is less than the number of graduating seniors from the prior year. So if you think about it just from an accounting standpoint, if you had 500 seniors graduating to keep the district from losing students just from the endpoint grades, you'd have to have 500 kindergarten students enter. And you never have enough to balance out the equation. Next. That's just showing the negative kindergarten replacement over the last 9 years, ranging up to almost 100 students per year. Next. This is showing the enrollment change mapped right next to the kindergarten replacement to show you the strong correlation that exists between negative kindergarten replacement and what your overall change in enrollment is from 1 year to the next. They're pretty similar. Next, please. So BERTs are used to project kindergarten students 5 years later. We looked at BERT data from 2007 to 2020. The BERTs have been sort of stable. You can see the range there, 263 to 312. If you look at the endpoint years, they're almost identical. Next slide, please. However, you can see that beginning in 2015, the birth rate bumped up to about 312. And that's the highest that it's been in the last 10 years. So if you think of it, it's like it's a plateau from 2007 to 2014, and then it raised up in 2015 and stayed on another plateau. Next, please. Okay, this is just showing BERTs over time and the kindergarten students 5 years later. And this is calculating the BERT to kindergarten ratio, which is simply the number of kindergarten students divided by the BERTs 5 years prior. And notice that all the ratios are below 1, which we refer to as sort of a capture rate. That if you have 277 children born in 2007 in the township, you're only getting 208 students entering your doors in the school district, which is all the values are less than 1. So either children are moving out before school age, or they are going to private or parochial schools for their education. Next, please. So what we were able to do is take all the birth data from the State Department of Health, which was given at the census block level, which is a really tiny geographic area, and we were able to create distributions by the elementary attendance areas. And what you can see here is that over this time period, the Wayside area has had the most births, the Wanamassa the fewest. And if we look at the endpoint years, the Ocean Township Elementary School has had an increasing birth rate over time, where there's 35 more births in 2020 as opposed to 2007. The opposite is true for Wanamassa. They've had 31 fewer births in 2020 as opposed to 2007. The unknown births are just women's addresses in the township that we know they live in the township, but we don't know exactly where. They were redistributed in for the projections on a proportional basis. Next, please. So this is showing the births by census block. I told you a moment ago about the census block. Dark blue are where the greatest number of births are occurring. This is back in 2007. And we show the elementary attendance area so you can see where the greatest births are. If we can advance to the next slide, you can see the darker shades, the greens. Those are the births that are increasing in the township in those particular blocks. If you just toggle back once more, Marianne, to 2007 and then go back to 2020, you can see again what I'm referring to. And if we go to the next slide, please, this is the aggregate number of births in the census blocks for the last 13 years. And most of the greater number of births have occurred in the Wayside area on the central part of the township in the dark blue regions. Next, please. This is an age pyramid, which is showing the number of people by sex, males and females, and by age on the left-hand side in a 5-year increments. In 2010, the greatest number of people for males was 45 to 49, and for females was 50 to 54. Next. This is showing what it would be. We don't have 2020 census age sex data yet, so we're using something called the 2016 to 20 American Community Survey. And what this is showing is that the greatest number of people for males and females are 55 to 59 in this particular survey from the census. Next. We compared the number of males and females over time to see where the biggest gainers and losers are. Really simply, the blue is showing where the greatest gainers are. You've had a lot of age-restricted communities in your township, so the biggest gainers are the people in the 70s for males and females, and the biggest decliners for males were in the 50s, and for females, 35 to 39. Next, please. We also did an analysis of all the school district historical enrollments for the last 6 years by race. And this is showing the 3 largest races, which mirror, actually all the races, it mirrors exactly what I mentioned before in the township. The whites are the largest, Hispanics are second largest, blacks are third largest. The white population is slightly declining while the Hispanic population is increasing. Next, please. In this current year, in 21-22, we show you here the race distribution by the elementary schools and then the intermediate school and high school. Blue, the reason I did them 3 different colors is because whites are the largest in each school, Hispanics are the second largest in each school, and blacks are the third largest. I would like to point out that the distribution of race is not quite the same in all the elementary schools. You can see that Ocean Township Elementary School has a much lower white population, more diverse population than Wanamassa in particular. Next, please. So when we look at economically disadvantaged students, we're looking at race and we're looking at free and reduced lunch status students. So in 16-17 school year, about 27% of the population was economically disadvantaged. It's declined actually since the 21-22 year is now about 24%. You've had a decline of 188 or so economically disadvantaged students. Next. Again, we're seeing that we're looking at the economically disadvantaged student population by school. At the elementary level, Wanamassa has the least percentage of economically disadvantaged students, while Ocean Township Elementary School has the greatest percentage. Next. So as I mentioned, we called the township to find out about new housing starts. These same 2 developments have been on the books, I think, for our last 2 demographic studies. One is finally under construction. That's the Oakhurst Country Day Estates. The other one, I believe, is in litigation. It's been approved, but has not started yet. Both are in the Ocean Township Elementary Zone, 88 homes in total. Next, please. So we are estimating about 39 children from those developments based upon what's called the housing multipliers from Rutgers University, which gives us an approximation of number of students that come out of certain types of units, single-family homes, townhouses, based on the number of bedrooms. Now, we did not modify the enrollment projections for these new housing starts because the future is construction that is planned in the township is very similar to what's happened in the last 5 years. There's been 71 non-age restricted housing units built in the last 5 years, and those houses would have children in them that would have entered into the school district and inflated the cohort survival ratio. So you can't just add the new students into the projections without considering the historical period. Otherwise, you would be double counting. Next, please. This is just showing home sales over time for the last 20 years. The low point around 2008 was due to the banking crisis, the mortgage crisis. And you can see a steady increase in home sales, 544 sales in 2021, which is the most in the last 20 years. Next, please. This is showing the home sales by census block. The greatest number of sales over the last 5 years has been in the Wayside attendance area over in the northwest corner and the western side of the township. Next, please. So this is the getting to what you really want to know, which is the projection. So in the next 5 years, believe it or not, we're still projecting a decline in the student population. That would be 3,040 students in the next 5 years, who would be a decline of 181 students from where you are now. Next. But if we look at it by elementary, intermediate, and high school, they're not the same across the board. We're actually projecting an increase in the elementary population. About 30 of the students of the 104 gain is projected in the elementary is due to the expansion of the pre-kindergarten program next year. Another 30 students are projected to be in that program. The decline in the other two, in the intermediate and high school grade configurations, is due to the smaller elementary cohorts finally moving through the system. So what this will tell us here is that I believe, not in this 5 years, but if we look beyond the next 5 years, you're finally going to start to turn the corner and go in the other direction and not decline anymore. You can't decline forever. It's just not going to happen. Next, please. This is just simply showing us the capacity of each of the buildings with respect to the current enrollment in 21-22 and the projected enrollment in 26-27. You have very, very large surplus seating. Everything in blue is surplus seating at both the intermediate school and the high school. Very small shortages of seating. You wouldn't even notice it probably at Wayside for this current year, as well as Ocean Township Elementary School in 5 years, because Ocean Township Elementary School is projected to have an increase of 85 students over this period due to that increase in birth rate that I mentioned earlier tonight. Next. So last, what's the effects of COVID? Well, they're really varied across the country. Every district that I work with has different results. So some of you may know that I'm calling you and speaking to you tonight through technology from the state of Vermont, where I now live. And Vermont has had an incredible decline in enrollment over time. We've had one of the biggest brain drain states in the nation behind Maine, but we've had an increase in the past year or so due to COVID, people moving up here from the cities and registering their kids in school. You can see some of the very large school district declines across the country, mostly in large cities. But the big question we all have are people going to permanently leave these large metropolitan areas to live in rural areas, either living in their second home or some new home that they've bought, or are they going to return to a metro area if and when they're ever called back to an in-office job, which I'm not sure is ever going to happen. We'll see. Next, please. So to summarize, we're projecting an enrollment decline for the next 5 years, but the decline is not uniform across the 3 grade configurations. The elementary enrollments are projected to be higher, partially due to adding more pre-kindergarten sections. And the projected decline in the intermediate and high school is due to those smaller existing elementary cohorts advancing into the upper grades. So with that, next slide, I will entertain questions.
Okay, great. Thank you for your presentation. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to ask the first question. That's okay. On slide 34, I would like to know the statistical level of confidence that this has for this decrease in enrollment, the slope of this. Like, what's the standard deviation? What's the confidence level of this at each step?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I actually wrote a paper on this. I'm actually kind of interested that you actually brought that up. So we actually wrote an analysis on doing confidence intervals for small, medium, and large districts. And your district would fall under a small category. And to make a long story short, to do confidence intervals for something of your size, the bands, the widths are incredibly wide, and it would make the data and the results almost meaningless. So you would have a couple hundred probably in each direction, the standard deviation, so it wouldn't even be worth reporting.
So what are we supposed to do with that? So I'm not sure I was supposed to digest what you just said.
Let me come back to, I'll come down to something else. So one of the things in the report we did, which I didn't discuss tonight, was the accuracy from the last report. So in the last report, we were off by a total of, we did 2 projections, and we were off by about 42 students in one projection and 44 students in the other direction, in the other projection. So we're looking for an error rate of about 1% per year. So in a 5-year projection, that would be a 5% error. That's actually pretty good results because the last study was done in February of 2020, right before the pandemic. And there's no way any of us could have projected that COVID would have happened. So the problem was in this last report was we overestimated a lot of students in kindergarten because a lot of parents decided not to send their children to school due to hybrid or Zoom learning or whatever you want to call it. So I think what we look for in the future is that 1% error rate per year.
Okay. So just to translate that, you mean, so for each level, you're thinking it's a plus or minus 30 kids.
Not for each level, that's district-wide.
I mean, for each year, 30 kids for each year.
Yes, right.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, thanks. Who's the first person to raise their hand? John? Okay.
So just to go off of that, so this is not a multiple linear regression that you utilize to determine these projections?
That's correct. This is not a multiple regression analysis. This is the cohort survival ratio method, if you want to call it. It's kind of more like a linear regression at each grade level. And we're aggregating 13 linear regressions, if you want to call it that.
And so then am I to understand that your single factor of correlation that you're utilizing for that is kindergarten replacement based on this presentation?
No, the biggest correlation that we use with projections, there's 2 of them. The biggest weights are historical enrollment and births. Those are the two big ones that drive what the projections will be.
I just don't understand how we can trust a linear, so it is a linear regression. I just don't understand how we can trust a projection of a linear regression and not have a legitimate confidence interval or standard deviation. And please explain it to me like I'm a child. I will not be offended.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, so I'm just trying to explain that with the sample size being as small as it is. So if we had a 50,000 student district, we can give you a tighter range of what the projections are going to be. But with a student population of 3,200, the range is going to be quite large. It could be something like 300 or 400 students in either direction. So what good would it be to have a projection where I'm telling you that the enrollment's going to range between 3,000 and 3,600? That's really what you would get if you wanted a confidence interval.
I think that I would then question this model. So I question the model that we utilize to make these projections, if that's the case.
Well, this is also the model accepted by the state. So you'd have to take that up with Trenton. Because they're the ones.
There's a lot of things I want to take up with Trenton today. So yeah, that's the case.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? I don't know the order here.
It doesn't matter. Go down the line. Go
Okay.
ahead, Grace.
Okay, Grace Ann.
So my question is, with the projection of new homeowners, what is the projection of new homeowners with children? What is the likelihood that they would be sending their children to our school versus a private school or to, some other type of charter school? And what are the factors that would be involved?
Okay, so one of the slides that we showed you today was that birth to kindergarten ratio, which is showing that their values were much below 1. So we can tell you that that ratio is derived by people choosing private or parochial school or moving out. I can't tell you with specific details what someone's inclination is to pick a private school over a parochial school. I could just say historically, this is what's been happening. You're losing a percentage of students going to private school. But who's going to be able to predict what a parent walking into a township buying a home tomorrow is going to select for their kid? Nobody can do that.
So you have one slide where it's 544 homes were sold. Can you tell or get the information of how many children are in those homes that were being bought, or no?
So no, the only information that we can get from that is the buyer's name and the seller's name. It does not tell us anything about who is actually living in there by age. That's not part of the public records.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Natalie?
So I have two questions. One is in follow-up to Grace Ann's, and it's not sure how to delicately ask it. But historically, over the past several years especially, we've had a lot of people from out of state moving in, and traditionally they do not use our schools. So is there any accounting for that trend in this presentation?
That's a good question. So explicitly, no, that's not data I'm privy to. I mean, so we're using a lot of state data from the Department of Ed. It's not showing where people are coming from, where they're moving, where they're moving into. So I don't have that data, unfortunately, but that's a very good question.
Okay, and then my second question is slide on a different topic, slide, I believe it's 28. The economically disadvantaged students. So I see that there's a decrease, and we had talked at this table a while ago that because of COVID 21-22, every student received free lunch, really. Every student received free lunch. So is there a consideration here that we may have had underreporting on the students who are actually economically disadvantaged? Meaning everyone was already getting free lunch. So did people not report it because they were already getting the free lunch?
Yeah, I wasn't aware that everybody was getting it, but that, we would see 100% there if everyone's getting it. So it must be whether they're getting free or reduced lunch or whether they're actually qualified is what I'm really reporting on. So there's that metric by income. But I think if you look at the report, I don't have it in front of me. It's not only the 16-17 year we're looking at, but we looked at every year in between the 17 and 21-22 year. So there has been a decline over time, not just this particular year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Irene?
Oh, I just had a quick follow-up question to that. And this is actually more for the superintendent possibly. Are we using the data in this report on free and reduced lunches for anything? This is a totally separate data set for our, okay, thank you.
What we used for free and reduced this year was we had a push for people to actually do the certs, and we utilized that number.
So we won't, if we're ever applying to any grant or whatever, the percentage in this thing is not going to be used. Okay, thanks.
We don't go by.
Projections, right?
Yeah.
Carrie?
So my question, Rich, is much like Natalie's. First of all, you have 35% in the district as renters. Are you talking about seasonal residents, summer, winter, or yearly renters? How did you achieve that figure of 35%?
So that's a definition by the census. A renter occupied unit would be someone who has permanent residency. So it would not be seasonal.
It would not be seasonal.
Correct.
And also, as Natalie was saying, your home sales, according to this, stop in 2020, but the last 2 years have seen a tremendous growth of out-of-state people coming into Ocean to buy, and the building of a new private school off of Deal Road that's going to deeply impact our district. So really, both of those factors are not part of this demographic report, but we're going to need that information in going forward as we do our budget and make our plans. We need that information. If those people are moving in from out of state and they choose to send their children, as you said, to private schools, it's going to cause our enrollment to continue to decline.
One thing, I just want to say about that is that if you look at the percentage of students that are attending public school in the last decade, it's been fairly consistent. So if this has been going on in your township for a while, where people are moving in and not attending your schools, I feel like that we're still on the mark here in being able to predict in the future what your kindergarten cohorts will be if that continues to occur.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good, Amy.
So with that, is there a report, and this might be more for our people, for our business administrator or superintendent, is there a report that we have that we know
who rents because to what everybody's asking is that a lot of our situation that has happened is that we have people that buy the homes, they live in them for the summer. We live close to the ocean, as I'm sure you know, and then in the winter, they rent out to Monmouth University students that are not going to be coming to our schools. So the trend of that has gone up significantly because especially since COVID, because these people that live in the city don't want to be there all the time. So they end up down here more. So I guess the question is, do we know a number of how many? I'm sure the school, like even the schools might know that might be another number to, I don't know if there's a number that we can give to them to maybe see if the projection changes at all.
When we enroll a student, we have asked for
Right, we have
proof
to-
of residency, so you would know whether
Yeah,
somebody
we-
who's a renter or not.
We know if a student who's enrolled as a renter
Yes.
or not. We don't necessarily know
Right.
the scenario of who lives but who's renting their house.
No, I guess my question more is that I don't know if there's a way to predict that there were in, Wayside School last year, there were 70 renters, right? And those same properties this year, there's only 35. I don't know if that number exists without a significant amount of work, but if it doesn't exist, if it exists without a significant amount of work, it might be a number to know, right? Like we know that if I don't know. I don't know if that variable would,
I could take it.
because I feel like that's 5 of the questions that have been here. That might be a variable. I don't know, Jeff, if that's something you
Yeah,
want to
well,
say if we would
It's
need.
got to
but-
affect.
Well, I think the two things that I guess the things we're concerned about is,
Probably.
Get it? We'd have to go through everything.
yeah, so I guess the things that we're concerned about is whether this actually accurately accounts for people moving into our community, and will they be sending their kids to public school, private school? And people that are residents here, when they rent out, when they're renting it out, where do those kids go? That's the two things that
I feel
we're,
like that's 5 questions.
right, isn't that the two big pieces of data that we're not sure of?
Yes, and I don't know if it's something that can be found. I just, it's something that we all know.
Right. I think, Alex, you're next.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that, the local realtor associations can provide some of that data. I don't know, but this is kind of making me think that it would be helpful if we beef up our exit interviews of families that are leaving town. Just at Dow, for example, I know there's a lot of sales going on in the last 6 months and people are leaving town because of the real estate prices. So it would be helpful if when we know kids are not returning, if we got a little bit of data from that. And then secondary to that is, are we sharing this with town folks too? Because they might be able to fill in some of the blanks, but also, I feel like they should be in on all these discussions.
Well, just to paraphrase for a second. I guess we're trying to figure out how to close the gap here, right? So we're how to close the gap on the data, right? That's what I think that's what we're trying to figure out. Is that, by the way, is that a fair assessment, everybody? Yeah, okay. Tina, do you have an idea how we can go about filling in some of the more? By the way, I appreciate the presentation.
Mhm.
I think what we're trying to do is figure out how to hone the presentation more into Ocean Township, right? What the real things that are going on here, right?
When we do the enrollment projection, we're only going at 1 year. So this serves as a guidance, but you're using other indicators, such as what the registrar's office is showing us, what's happening with the pre-K. So when I look at really what we've been off from what we put in, it hasn't been more than 3%. So, this again, it's one of the data points that we used when we were building the enrollment.
You mean you haven't been off 3% from year to year?
No, not since I've seen Ken was good, and this year we were pretty spot on.
3% from year to year?
Yes.
For 2 years.
Well, 3% in each enrollment year, correct. plus or minus.
Right, but I guess the challenge with that is, and I don't want to deviate into some other thing here, but the challenge of that is we're thinking about this property, we're thinking about what to do with this land, we're thinking about what the capacity, what does that mean to the individual schools? 3% every year would mean another, 500 kids if we were off the wrong side of 3% every year, right? Which would take from 3,000 to 2,500. So I don't know how do we hone in on this better?
I mean, I think that there are more, I think that we need to stray away from utilizing what the state is saying to utilize, right? As a society, we have figured out far greater ways to use predictive modeling to determine what is going to happen in the future for a company or a market or anything like that. And so I don't know that, and I'm very happy to hear from the gentleman who has a graduate degree in this field of study, why I'm wrong. So I please would like to encourage that, but I don't know that I don't think that we can reasonably make a decision off of the information that we have here in this. We cannot use this for effective decision-making in the future. And so I think that the model here needs to be tightened up, and we need to have we need to be considering the multiple factors that could be impacting our future enrollment, and then have a predictive model that is going to tell us which of those factors has the greatest weight, and then utilize that to determine what is going to happen and include the issues with what's happening with housing in this town. And then, I mean, we're not asking the man to forecast unforeseen events, but the model needs to be tightened up, in my opinion. I don't know that we can utilize this for decision-making in the future.
Okay, anybody else?
Have we ever reached out to, there's at least 2 private schools in town, right? 2 religious private schools. We're really not their competition. It's kind of like I work for a utility company. The utility companies aren't competing against each other. So that's why we actually share data, because PSEG is not in competition with the gas company. So have we, or can we reach out to them and, just see if they're willing to give us any data? How many of their students have been an increase of in-town students? Why wouldn't they want to share that with us? Because they're not going to be going to our schools anyway, if they're going to those schools, if that makes sense. I think it's worth an outreach, because I don't think that's, proprietary info. Because if you're going to one of those religious schools, you're not going to come to our school anyway. So why can't they tell us, oh, we have 37 students that live in town, but 90 get bussed in. But now next year it's going to be 72. And versus, you know what I'm saying? I just think that's worth it.
Because how else are we going to get that information?
Yeah, we're not. I don't think so.
Would they share that?
Well, I guess they have their own projections. So we could probably, first we could ask if they want to share their projections. Then they can decide if they want to share their projections, right? That's probably.
Yeah, they could say no, absolutely.
And I'm not sure how many ways there are, how many different schools we'd have to go out and do that for. So that, what's your thought on that, Mr. Truba?
Depends on if they're going to be open about sharing their data. I don't like to share a lot of I'll give high level, but we're a public school, they're private. They don't have to.
They don't have to, yeah.
No.
Well, and we know how many seats they're increasing, but we don't know where their students are coming from. Yeah.
Do you have a thought about this, Dr. Stefanowicz?
Well, I think that, we've certainly over the years have had open discussions and relationships with private schools in the community. So, we can certainly, never hurts to ask. I know that, in some cases, they're very, depending on what the information is, they're very private about some of their data for security purposes, for other reasons. And so, but we can certainly ask.
Didn't we, I'm sorry to interrupt, didn't we on that note also see a large increase in the vocational district acceptances? Like, didn't they used to only accept 2 per town and now it was like unlimited?
No, they haven't changed their enrollment.
I thought this year they have a lot more Kids for Motion going to?
If what they do is they take they take a certain number of students per community, and then it's an at-large. So it depends on the scores of the applicants, just highest to lowest, and that can differ from community to community every year. So there's no, I don't believe we've gotten the final list yet of students who have been accepted and are actually attending next year at locations. We get that list every year for tuition purposes. But I don't believe we've received it, because I don't know that they've had to commit yet or not. I'm not sure they have. So we should probably be getting that soon.
Okay, so just from a process here. So it seemed that we had the idea of asking these other schools for some of their projections. Are we all cool with kind of everybody nodding? Are we all cool with that? Okay. So Tina, would you mind kind of putting that on a list to look at and to see if it helps?
Renters year over year, see what I could get out of our systems here.
Yeah. What did you, but we also wanted to reach out to these other private schools, right?
Both.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay. If it's okay, what I wouldn't mind doing right now, because we weren't able to have questions around this during the workshop, if we were okay with opening this up to public questions. Is that all right, board? That we go to the questions?
I think it's questions on the agenda.
Yeah.
Public comment.
Without, yeah, we would be in public comment, right? Okay.
Or did you have other things to talk about, Tina, in your
Yeah,
report?
I mean, I didn't want to,
How long do you have?
cognizant-
How long do you have on your thing?
no, it's not a lot. I want to be cognizant of Mr. Grip's time. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if we see
Just
what
take-
public comment,
Okay.
if there was public comment not related to his, we could do that
Okay,
after.
so we'll just take questions from the public around this topic, around the enrollment presentation. And Dr. Cripps, did I get that right? Grip, would you mind staying on the line and answering some questions from the public?
Sure.
Great, thank you. Anybody here like to have any questions for our expert? Thanks for your patience and waiting.
Oh, sorry.
William Harowitz, 14 Magnolia Court, Ocean Township. I've read the report and I've read the prior 3 reports. And given that we haven't had an increase in enrollment for the last 20 years, I find it hard to believe that all of a sudden we're getting an increase. The report itself has been pointed out by some board members, has some holes in it, okay? The report was based upon information provided to by the planning board. Well, the Deal Road townhomes, 70 townhomes, starting at a base price of $500,000. That's before the options are even added. So typically I would guess that a house is going to cost 600 to 625 in the townhomes. Oakhurst Country Day Estates. Homes are 4,400 to 5,800 square feet. Not exactly the type of home that somebody who's having young children is going to buy off the bat unless they've got parental support. Okay? So the forecast itself doesn't address the issue of charter schools. It continually talks about Country Day Estates and the townhomes, and I don't even think that's relevant relative to any increase. And the loss of vacation homes creates a loss of housing stock for children, for families with children, as does the rental, has been pointed out. Those haven't been factored into the forecast at all. And to me, that's an issue. Plus the fact that Ocean Township, whether we like it or not, is aging. It's getting older, it's not getting younger. It has an aging community. I'm one example. Okay. In terms of the birth rate, the data through 2021, should be through June of 2021, shows a decline nationally. It also shows a 2% increase for the state of New Jersey. They don't have statistics yet by hospital or by location available yet, but it shows a 2% decline in the birth rate. And we've had a continual drop in the birth to kindergarten survival ratio, yet that's what's driving our forecast up. My question is, where is special education in this forecast? Is it buried in each grade level? Doctor?
No, it's in the report. It's in what's called an ungraded special education. So it's.
Let him answer the question. Thanks. Okay, finish your response.
So special education is not pullouts, it's only students who are considered to be ungraded as per the classification system of enrollment for the state. So it is in there, it's shown by elementary, intermediate, and high school grades.
Okay, and is the board going to receive the forecast in detail by grade level?
It already has. The report's been submitted.
One of the things that I took a look at, we questioned, John, you questioned whether or not the 0.1% was the right number. I took a look at a paper by Stephen Rayer in 2008, Population Forecasting Error, a primer for planners. And I took a look at the projection of educational statistics to 2021 produced by the National Center for Educational Statistics. They came up with a different number for planners. They came up with 0.3, 0.6, and 1.3 for a 5-year period. Okay, so we need to understand as a board, what is the right forecasting error? In the article that I read that was written by the doctor, if I read it correctly, it was 30,000 districts with 30,000 people. Only 2 of the districts that reported were under 20,000. And we're not even close. Now you could argue the law of large numbers, but I don't know where that takes us. I think we really need to carefully consider, as many board members seem to think, that we really need to consider how we do these forecasts, because they don't have any reliability from the perspective of us understanding where they're going. If you look at this report, the 3 elementary schools have a capacity of 1430. Yet the projection for 2026, 2027 is 1388, which means we have 82 leftover seats. It literally argues the point for the board to consider, can we mothball a school for a short-term period of time and save some money?
Great, thanks for the comments and for the questions. Ms. Conway,
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last comment.
oh, the comment was, could we consider what to do about consolidating schools and things like
I
that?
think we do, we are considering that.
Okay, I
And our
heard that we
facilities
considered
plan.
selling the building, but I didn't hear that we were considering consolidating.
We haven't, yeah, I think he's right. We haven't had big conversations
No,
around that.
but
No,
I
you're,
think we're looking at all of that. I mean, we've done plans going back, how many years ago? I think it was 2018 that we were looking at potentially putting the administrative building into the intermediate school.
yes, but
So this has been, I mean, we have plans that we
Yeah.
have looked at it, Jeff.
But you
Yeah.
haven't looked at what
I
you're saying is
think-
closed,
he's
like.
talking about
No,
something-
no, no.
he's talking about something else. He's talking about something else. He's talking about closing the school or something like that. Thank you for the comments.
Courtesy of
Right.
speaking. I
Yes.
wish everybody a happy Passover, a happy Easter.
Oh, thanks. Same to you as well. Anybody, Ms. Conway, anybody remotely like to make a comment? About,
No, President Weinstein, there are no commenters.
okay, now we're gonna open this up to, public. Oh, Ms. Truby would like to do more.
And I'm gonna make this quick.
Wait, thank
Yep.
Dr. Grips.
Yeah, Dr. Grip, thank you so much for your presentation. You could drop off now. If there's any additional questions, I'll send them to you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, thanks.
Okay, so I just want to talk about a couple of operational things that are going to be going on. We are finally starting to receive some of the IT equipment that we purchased months ago. So Mike Hall's team's taken a jump on 21 lots of computers that he's gearing up to be ready for the July timeframe. Mr. Bosman's is going to be working over the break to start the bathroom here in the administrative building. So we met with the chamber last week. They're fine with the plans of what we're looking to do. So we're going to start that. We're still waiting on parts though for the elevator lift, the chair lift. Okay, so once we get that, we'll move forward there. And then there were a couple of questions that were asked of me last week regarding this building and what could we do? So I reached out to the old appraiser, Gagliano and Company. And if we want to do the appraisal as it was done last time with having the entire lock and lot sold, okay, all the 11 acres, the cost to do that is going to be $4,500. If we want to look at potentially subdividing this, I need to go and get an engineering study done, okay, to understand how we could break up the property. There's wetlands in the back. That would cost an additional $13,000. So, I mean,
Okay.
at this point, I think there's a decision that the board needs to make before I move forward with any of this. I could definitely fit the 4,500 into this year's budget if the board chooses that they want to do that to see the number.
Okay.
Okay?
Let me make a suggestion, if it's okay. But, well, is to table the study on the, what it would take to keep this and the other thing around it. And let's just look at the macro number right now on the appraisal and be okay with the $4,500 to spend for the appraisal for this. And depending on how that turns out, we can decide if we felt like we wanted to also think about what it would take to isolate this building and do something else. So can I get a show of hands if that's an okay way for us to go?
Wait, I couldn't hear the beginning of what Gina said.
So there's
$4,500.
4,500 to reappraise the whole property. And then if we wanted to have an appraisal for saving this building, but understanding what it would mean to sell the rest of the grounds, that would take an appraisal, that would take about 13,500. So my suggestion is to just look at the first number and see what that comes to and see what that means. And then we can make a decision based on that if we felt we wanted to look and see what would happen if we were to keep the building and have another
Can I ask that?
area around it. Yeah,
My one quick question is, does that give us the number of what it is as zoned as it is right now? Plus it will give us a number of if we just went out from fair market value.
And the previous appraisal included like, comps in like 2 counties away from us, Can we request that this appraisal really stick locally?
Sure.
Because it makes no sense to compare to Edison or whatever they did last
When
time.
I called over to the township, I spoke to Mr. Kirk and I said, this is who we used last time to do the appraisal. And he said that he's a very respected individual. So I feel confident that if I ask him to do certain things, he'll work with us, especially knowing that we might be doing another appraisal with him if we look to subdivide.
so remember, we're just doing this to get the information so we can decide next steps. Okay, what those might be. So who's,
So you're asking us to vote to approve the expense of $4,500 for the initial appraisal?
correct,
Okay.
of the entire property? Right, exactly. Can I get a show of hands of who's interested in that? Your hands up? Okay. So I think we have a group that says, okay, to go for that.
Perfect. I
Okay.
will contact him tomorrow. And I have a copy of the appraisal. The proposal. I don't know if we put it on Word docs, but I could I could scan this and send it out to everybody.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Trevor?
Nope, that's it.
Okay,
That's it.
great, thank you. And thanks for all the follow-up that you've done. We're now going to move to public comment. The following a series of motions to be read by the committee chairpersons. All motions have been discussed at a recent public work session. Some motions have been approved at a public work session, and the minutes for the approved items are posted on the district website. At this point in the meeting, we will now conduct the first two public comment sessions. The first session will be on public comments on agenda items only. The second will be at the end of the meeting, can be on any topic. Would anybody like to make a comment on any agenda item at this time? Anybody from the public?
President Weinstein, there are no commenters at this time.
Great, and nobody from the public wants to make a comment right now? Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Conway. Financial management and resources, Natalie? Oh, we have to read minutes. Minutes, sorry. Irene, approval of minutes?
Okay. Approval of minutes,
Thanks.
move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Education bylaws 0168, recording of board meetings for our work meeting and executive session minutes, April 5th, 2022.
Second.
Natalie. Is that Natalie?
Yeah.
All in favor, right?
Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Great.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Natalie, financial management and resource services?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weinstein. I have 15 items for approval this evening. 6.1, move to approve the following resolution, which certifies that budget balances at the end of March 2022 were adequate to pay all remaining obligations of the 21-22 school year, and that account groupings required by the state have adequate balances. The board is also certifying that the independent reports of the treasurer and the business office are in agreement as per the below and attached. 6.2, move for approval of the attached resolution dated March 2022, covering appropriation transfers in the 21-22 General Fund 10. Said transfer shall result in no change in the total original appropriations. 6.3, move for the approval of the following paid items as listed below and attached, totaling $4,609,034.65. 6.4, move to approve the following security drills for the month of March 2022 as listed below. 6.5, move to approve the write-off of outstanding checks. Total that's supposed to be total write-off is $43,793.91. 6.6, move to approve the write-off of food service items. Net impact is a write-off of $25,588.43 of receivables owed to the district. 6.7, move to approve the shared services agreement for school bus mechanic services between Monmouth Ocean Educational Services Commission and the Township of Ocean Board of Education for the period of April 30th, 22 through June 30th, 22, as per the attached. 6.8, move to approve an agreement with Monmouth Ocean Educational Services Commission to provide part-time instructional, special education, and transportation aid placements as possibly needed for the period of July 1, 22 through June 30th, 2023, as per the below rates. 6.9, move to approve an agreement with Monmouth Ocean Educational Services Commission for non-public school instructional services for Every Student Succeeds Act funds for 22-23 school year in accordance with the attached agreement. 6.10, move to approve an agreement with Monmouth Ocean Educational Services Commission for non-public school instructional services for Individual with Disabilities Education Act IDEA-B funds for 22-23 school year in accordance with the attached agreement. 6.11, move to approve the submission of the grant application for the 2022 Safety Grant Program through the NJSIG MOCSSIF Subfund for Identified Safety and Security Facility Upgrades in the amount of $21,084 for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. 6.12, move to approve the Master Shared Services Agreement between the Township of Ocean Board of Ed and Deal Board of Ed. Addendum 1 details the scope of the shared cafeteria services for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 as attached. 6.13, move to approve the submission of the grant application to the American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth 2 ARP-HCY 2 for the fiscal year 2022 and the acceptance of the grant award of these funds in the amount of $27,491 upon approval to offset transportation costs of homeless youth. 6.14, move to approve the contract renewal for food service management to Sodexo School Services for the 22-23 school year. The minimum financial client guaranteed return for the food service program will be a surplus of $45,000. The guarantee is unlimited and the fixed price per meal for lunch is $3.52 and the fixed price per meal for breakfast is $3.51. Note that a food service RFP was issued and awarded to Sodexo Services, and this is the 5th year renewal of the 5-year contract. And last, 6.15, move to approve the revised 22-23 tentative school district budget for submission to the county superintendent for review. And there's a lengthy content here for public review as per the below. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
Are there any questions or comments anybody wants to make at this time on any of the items?
I just want to talk about 6.15. The budget did not change. Some of the line items did based on working with our county BA. She wanted certain things out of special revenue and into general fund, but the total dollar stayed the same. Okay. If there's anything else.
I had a question. Have there been any other changes in personnel? Have the personnel been notified of possible movement?
There's no additional
No addition.
reductions than what we've already discussed as related to the budget. Not all of those moves have been worked out yet. So we have some time on that, typically
Till May.
by early May.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about any of the items? Ms. Drew, if you can do a roll call.
Yes, Ms. Beal,
6.1 to 6.14, yes. 6.15, I need to recuse myself for professional reasons.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes to all.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes to all except for 6.15. I vote no.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes, to all.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Mrs. Prolanis.
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes, to all except 6.15, no.
Ms. Tortorella,
Yes to all.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, Irene, instruction, education, and student activities?
Yes, there are 8 items for instruction, education, and student activities. 7.1, the amended 2021-2022 school calendar for teachers and students. Amending the calendar to reflect an adjustment to the last day of school for teachers and students. A copy of the amended calendar is attached. Last day for teachers and students will now be Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. It was to have been June 22nd, 2022. 7.2, move to approve amending the 2021-2022 work calendar for 10-month employees. Job categories indicated on the calendar to reflect an adjustment to the last day of work. A copy of the amended calendar is attached. Last day of work will now be Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. It was to have been June 22nd, 2022. 7.3, out of district tuition cancellation. Move to approve a cancellation to out-of-district public tuition for the 2020-2021 school year in accordance with the attached memorandum dated April 8th, 2022. 7.4, move to approve curriculum writing requests to be completed before June 30th, 2022, in accordance with the attached memorandum dated April 6th, 2022. 7.5, move to affirm the district's out-of-school suspension report for the month of March 2022. 7.6, move to approve the attached memorandum dated April 7th, 2022, staff professional development activities in accordance with District Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A:23A-7. The attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and/or further the efficient operation of the district. Reimbursement for travel and related expenses shall be according to the Department of the Treasury guidelines in NJOMB Circular 06-02 and A-87. 7.7, move to approve preschool visitations by Township of Ocean District staff to the Keensburg and Middletown school districts on April 28th, 2022. The purpose of the visits is to obtain information on how they run their preschool program. Additional information is attached. And 7.8, our HIB report. Move to affirm the receipt of the following harassment, intimidation, and bullying incident summary reports for 2021-2022 school year. The reports were previously provided to the board by the superintendent of schools. The board has reviewed the reports and affirms the superintendent's reports number 16 for April 5th, 2022, and report number 17 for April 12th, 2022. Any discussion or
First we do a second.
second first?
Second.
Okay, second first.
Okay. Now, any
No.
discussion?
Can you explain the preschool development? I'm sorry, the preschool visits a little bit more? Why do we have to go? And then why also our child study team folks going on that?
I think it's just good practice to go out, as we are developing program, it's good practice to go out and see existing programs that have been up and running. We do that in other areas as well, to go see other programs. And because since our programs are inclusive and have special education students in them, I think it just is wise practice to have child study team members as part of that visitation.
We've done that before. We've sent people to go observe preschool specific is what I'm asking.
I'm not sure if we've done preschool before this, but we've certainly sent people out to observe, look at other programs. It's not uncommon.
And did our previous preschool assistant superintendent, did she go on any of those preschool visits to other districts?
I don't know. I don't recall or remember if we've gone specifically at this point, with other preschools. I mean, I know we've certainly spoken with other existing preschool. As we were building our programs, we spoke to other schools that were part of the preschool grants. I don't recall if we've visited any.
Okay.
prior to now.
Okay, anybody else have any
Cool,
questions?
thank you.
For 7.4 curriculum writing hours, I believe previously we've been told like the teacher or the individual that's conducting the curriculum writing hours. Am I incorrect in that?
Usually ask for the request and then.
You want to answer that, Jim?
Yeah, I think that.
I'm just curious who's conducting the writing hours.
I think what we have to do in these cases is we approve the ability to write it, that we have to post for it. And then we would come back and approve the individual.
Okay. Do we know what curriculum standards they're writing to?
New Jersey.
The
student loan.
Yeah, I'm talking about specific standards.
Specific to that content area. I'm not sure what you're.
Okay.
referring to.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions in this area? Yep, Ms. Gilman?
To address your question, there's a response from a preschool teacher that you might want to take a look at as to why visitations are important for the
I'm not,
for the group.
yeah,
We'll just read her response.
sure, definitely not saying they're not
Any other
important.
questions?
I never heard of this, so this is great.
Okay, great. I think we can look to.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton.
7.1 abstain, 7.2 through 7.7 yes, 7.8 number 16 no, 7.8 number 17 yes.
Okay, wait. So 7.0 abstain, 7.2 through 7.7 yes. Go ahead.
7.8 number 16 no, 7.8 number 17 yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilman,
Yes to all.
Ms. Hayes,
Excuse me, 7.1 to 7.7, yes. 7.8, I recuse myself from number 16, regrettably, and number 17, yes.
okay, Mr. McCarthy,
Yes to all but 7.4. I vote no to that.
okay, Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Palamas.
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
For 7.4, I'm abstaining, and for 7.8, no for number 16. Yes for the rest.
7.8, number 16, no, and then everything else is yes. Other than
7.4
the
abstain.
abstaining, right, okay. Ms. Tortorella,
7.1 to 7.7, yes. 7.8, I'm a no on 16 also, and HIP 17, yes.
eight, 16. Okay, Mr. Weinstein.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, Ms. Paramus, personnel?
Yes. I have 7 motions this evening. First, number 1, move to approve the resignation of Mrs. Shannon Carey, Assistant School Business Administrator and Assistant Board Secretary, effective June 30th, 2022. 8.2, move to deny the request of District Employee number 7214 to use 30 days from the Sick Personal Leave Bank Plan. 8.3, move to approve the request of Romy Georgianow, Instructional Assistant, Intermediate School, to take an unpaid family leave of absence for the period of April 7th through May 26, 2022. 8.4, move to approve an unpaid family leave of absence for Antoinette Nguli, Bus Driver, Transportation Department, for the period of April 1st through June 24th. 8.5, move to approve the request of Roseanne Johnson, special ed teacher at the intermediate school, to take an unpaid family leave of absence for the period of June 1st through June 21st. 8.6, move to approve that a revised contract be issued to Margot Ramirez, custodian 1. And 8.7, move to approve that a contract be issued to the following as listed below. Can I please have a second?
Second.
Ms. Truba?
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman. Ms. Gilman, I'm sorry.
Yes to all but 8.2, no for 8.2.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
I know Mr. McCarthy stepped out. Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Palamas.
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
Ms. Torello,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Denise. Grace Ann, policy?
Thank you. We have one item up for approval tonight. Move to approve 9.1, the final revisions to policy 8550, meal charges, outstanding food services bill as attached. Can I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who second? Thank you. Any questions or?
Are we going to also do that second?
No, that was a first
That was
reading.
first
You can
reading.
have a conversation about it.
Yeah, but we didn't discuss it in the work.
Right.
Because we said we were
That's what
going to
I'm
discuss
saying.
it
So
here.
do
Yeah,
you
we
want to go
discussed
for the vote first, or do you want to?
We have to discuss it, yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody
okay.
second, you want to discuss it?
Okay, but we're going to go over that second policy.
The vote is for the first one.
Right.
The discussion's for the second one.
See, it was on the work.
You can still
We
discuss
didn't
both
talk
of them.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So do you want to do the vote first, or do you want to? Yeah, okay. Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Prolanis.
Yes.
Mr. McGovern.
I answered anything.
Mrs. Delarico.
Yes. I have been
And Mrs.
called worse.
Tortorella.
Yes.
I'm gonna start calling you Sarah.
No.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, so is there a discussion somebody wants to have around the other policy?
9.2, what's
The travel related.
The,
Transportation.
it was
Yeah, do we-
transportation related.
But do we need to like read it or something or?
no, I think you can just make your,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's a first reading, so you can.
Yeah, quite honestly, I looked at this on Friday, so I'm not quite sure what this question is that I wrote, but it says if we're taking this language out of the bus policy, does this mean we are no longer busing those kids? Is that what that,
No, I think what they're doing is they're
Mm.
consolidating the law under different things, so you don't need to have, the law speaks to that you're busing the children.
we're still gonna bus them? Okay.
Great, any other comments?
Yeah, I can't go on a cruise. That was
No, not unless one of our buses flies.
What is this travel charge card that they kept referring to in the policy?
We don't use that. We
Yeah.
pay aid in lieu. We give the parent money if they choose to bus their child. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
But I think as school districts are becoming more automated, that is coming down the road. So I left that language in there.
Any other comments? No? Okay, great. We're gonna go to old business. Anybody for old business? Natalie, I think you had your hand up first.
I have a question about the demographic survey from this morning.
Feels like that
An
one.
hour ago. How often do we do that and how much does it cost?
This one was
Usually every
about
couple of years.
like $6,000. We don't do a full one every year. It's more like every 5 years. And we tend to do an update, a very smaller one, maybe in every 2 years.
You said 6,000?
Yeah. Yeah, we brought that to the board, so.
Yeah.
I know, I just didn't
Yeah,
remember.
so like a little over $6,000.
And now that I've seen it, I might look at it.
Yeah,
How much is the smaller one?
in the, like, I think it was like 2,500.
John?
2 weeks ago, whenever we voted on the preliminary budget, we had brought up the discussion as a board that we wanted to start to consider how we're going to educate parents on what is going on with S2 districts, and specifically who they could reach to in Trenton to talk to them about what's happening with our districts. I just would like to either start to talk about this or get this on the agenda or see what we're going to do about this sort of thing as a board.
Yep. So I think that also probably is coupled with that we were gonna write some a resolution when submitting our budget to the county. So I think they're both kind of along the same lines to some extent, right? One is, I think, so just to kind of talk through the paces here. April 26th, we're going to have a meeting to go over the budget. I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm wrong, that at that time, we're gonna be able to view the user-friendly discussion of the budget.
It'll be out before then. So what I'll do is, once we get county approval, I must, 4 days prior to that meeting, get it in the paper. If the county approves it tonight, I will do that sooner rather than later. And I'll make sure everybody knows that where it's published. And then we're working on a budget presentation in addition to that.
Right, and part of that is we also communicate to the public
Yes.
that this budget is now up for review and all that stuff, right?
It's in the business office and it's in both the papers.
Okay, and John, where did you want to go with beyond, what were you?
I think
thinking
that parents need to be educated on the fact that we are losing money because we are an S2 district and that it's going to continue to go down. And because of this squeeze that we now have on us from the state, we're going to feel further pain than we are now. And there were certain things that we all, I mean, we may not have agreed on the things, but there were certain things we all wanted added to this budget that were not included.
Right.
So I think it's twofold. I think one, I think parents should be made aware of the things that didn't make it into the budget this year because of a decrease in funding. I think that What was that?
That's gonna be part, I think that's gonna be part of the
Budget
presentation.
presentation.
Okay, awesome. That's great. But I think additionally, parents need to be made aware of how much we're losing and who they should contact. And I think one of the additional things that I had requested, even though I'm sure the man writes plenty of letters, is that a letter come out from the superintendent explaining all of this too, and who they should contact, specifically our state representatives in Trenton, in the Senate, and in the legislature,
Okay, so.
assembly, to correct myself.
Jeff, before you respond,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, that I had brought that up last week too, that we needed, I showed the example from Scotch Plains, where they very clearly talk about the budget and how we got there. And I heard Tina say it goes in the newspapers. I know we have to do that, speak for myself, I haven't read a newspaper in many years. So can we send it out on the Mind? Can we?
Website,
like,
yes.
It needs to be
Yep.
everywhere.
Yep.
Please, thank you.
One of the things that I've seen is certainly that there's some, the budget's not voted, the state budget is not formalized typically till June, sometimes not until July. So there's certainly, all of this, of course, is contingent in state aid, and all of that is contingent upon the passage of the state budget, which typically doesn't happen until the end of the fiscal. And so there's certainly a lot of time for our parents to communicate with legislatures, local legislators regarding the budget and the restoration of state aid in that final budget document that will go, before the legislature, probably in June.
Yes. Completely agree with that statement. So I think we need to communicate that very clearly so that they can be calling the right people and advocating on behalf of us.
Yeah, so just to be fair about the whole process, right? We know how many people are on the Zoom call today? 41, okay.
Well, 30 some odd when you take out.
30 when you take out us and teachers and all that stuff, right? Right,
So
so,
take out teachers.
right, so the challenge is that when we have the presentation on the 26th, there'll be very few people on this presentation, okay? So we need, right, so that's what the challenge is. So when we make it available on the website and we send things out, I'm not sure how many people actually go and do that. So a couple of things we probably should do is, and then before, and by the way, if you guys don't agree, just let me know. We should probably figure out a way to track the open rate for that presentation, right? We should probably track the open rate so we know what that looks like, right? That would help us know at least how many parents are looking at it.
Got that, Marianne?
The open rate on the presentation.
it.
Right, that's probably some
Yes, we do that for all.
great show.
We've also talked about doing a form letter that gets sent, and I don't know that it's Dr. Spank that writes it. It might be
Yeah.
a board member that writes it that says.
We've done letters at home before,
Right.
asking parents
But
to
I'm saying,
contact.
it might come across a little bit better if it comes from,
A
it
board
will come
member.
across not better, but differently. If it comes from a board
Different
member, I'm
voice.
not gonna be the one to write it, but
I'd be happy to write it. Well,
just being,
well, first of all,
I think you're the best man for the
As a
job.
board, yeah, first of all, as a board, we probably want the public to review the budget, right? That's what we want. We like everybody to review the budget. So once it goes on the website, right, because you're gonna have a communication to them as well, right, to the parents as well. So we should just we'll craft a letter that can go, if we're all okay with this, we'll craft a letter that can go out from me with all the board members on it. That will reiterate the importance of looking at this budget and also being, and kind of talking to our issue as a S2 district, okay? So,
and explaining what an S2.
and explain,
district is.
right, something that could be, right,
Sorry.
No, can I speak?
of course.
I'm also going to suggest that maybe that letter can be given to Jim, who can then hand it out at the president's meeting. I know you only have probably one more left, and they may be able to read it at their PTA meeting, just to
Great.
maybe reach more
Great.
parents.
Yeah. So So a letter is.
It also needs to include that we need them to contact Trenton, right? I just want to make sure that that doesn't get missed, like
Yeah,
Senator
we'll-
Hingle,
yeah,
Mary Lou
we'll take it.
Paterno,
Yeah,
right?
we'll-
These,
we'll-
they need to be
We'll
contacted.
create a draft
Okay.
and we'll figure out how to get it edited and then
Okay,
we'll see it. We'll get to the proper tone of what this looks like.
absolutely.
Now, by the way, so that, is that as far as we want to take it?
Well, we should also wait to see what the final state budget, didn't you say that there's a possibility we could get more funding in the summer?
Well, I wouldn't wait for that. I think what
Yeah,
we
we
have
have
to
to-
do is advocate now
Yeah.
so that the legislature could potentially change the budget to more positively to negate some of the losses of S2 districts. That would happen in the process leading up to the budget.
Have they
If
ever
we're gonna
done
get, they have, it hasn't helped us necessarily, but they have made changes to the budget.
Just, let me just ask a question. Just that,
We'll end up losing more money.
just from a superintendent's point of view and from an administration's point of view, how much should you be an advocate for that kind of movement of people talking about people writing to the, are you kind of is that a position you should take, a position you shouldn't take? Are you more on the sideline because for that?
No,
I mean, is it?
it's absolutely a position I think we should take. I unfortunately, I don't think it has, I don't think statewide for S2 districts, it's really made a lot of difference.
Yeah.
I mean, what I will say is that not in the budget. I think there have been situations where through things like the stabilization aid possibilities that we've talked about here that have come, and when I say through the budget, I mean through state, Department of Education state aid. I think those things haven't changed, but I think they have found ways to open up other avenues for funding like stabilization aid that has helped. Yeah, that has helped to offset some of the losses, but the losses, it's kind of like, you got money in column A and money in column B. And we're gonna continue to take away the money in column A because that's what we said we're going to do. But we're gonna make some other money available to you in column B to help offset it. So in one sense, we can tell our constituents that we cut from column A, but then we added back to column B, and that's a whole different, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's a different pile.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And John, stop me if I'm wrong. I think along with your letter, the other thing we spoke about was that having like the second page of your letter is a form letter or a form email that can be sent. That when you send it out to everybody, you say, this is the letter that you can send from Ocean Township, that's
That's a good idea.
so it
Something,
should be
so make
like,
it easy.
right, did you, I
Boom,
feel
as
like.
easy as
you wrote-
possible.
You want
Make it
emails
easy.
and calls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
emails,
but where
emails,
it's, well,
yeah.
here's the emails that you
Right.
can
Yeah.
send. and
Here's the
here it is.
language.
Here's the language, right. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Very common.
So we'll figure out how to write a letter that encourages the public to reach out and figure out how that letter helps operationalize their response. Okay, and then we'll monitor how much their people are hitting the website to look at this, and we'll report on that. And if it turns out that number of hitting the website is low, right? Or the open rate on our email is low, then we'll figure out what the next step is from there. Is that a good next step for us all? Natalie?
Do that or
I
more.
don't really think we should wait for the open rate. I think we should just.
But no, what the next step is after that. If that doesn't, if no one's opening it, no one's looking at
No,
that.
I'm saying it should be in other places at the same time as the letter.
I think we need a straw poll vote.
Really, I've said this 1,000 times. We need
think we need
to
to-
communicate more about this stuff in more places than a PDF letter and Facebook. Alex has said it 1,000 times. There's other ways to communicate this stuff. That's all I'm saying.
So just with that, is the only place that the things that this is gonna point to is the website? Or is it something that we're gonna post this on, our Facebook page
If you're sending an email out as a whole, all of your parents, teachers, community members, you could probably get possibly get the town to give you even their email list.
Mhm.
Like, I think you send it to as many people in town that you can get. You can ask Paul Merowitz to send it to his group. The letter from you and the letter, the town newsletter.
Go on that.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think, you know,
so,
and that doesn't have
okay,
anything to
great,
do
good
with
idea,
anything.
great idea. So is it talking to, so it's probably talking to the business administrator of the town, probably talking to them, right?
It's
And probably
writing the
also the
letter first.
council, yeah.
That's step one, is writing the
Yeah.
letter.
But right now we have, like, I think that's probably the easiest part is to write the letter. It's figuring out how to disseminate the letter is probably the bigger thing. Okay, so I'll take it upon myself to talk to the council people. Okay, about that. Cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
And we'll figure out, Tina, different, okay. Oh, yeah, can I get a straw poll on everything we just talked about?
Go for it.
Go for it? Okay, great, okay, super. Was that old business or new business?
It's old business.
Okay, can I get another old business?
Just take care. That was me.
Oh.
That was addressed.
Grayson, go
I
ahead.
have a business. Any updates on the community action committee?
I have not done that yet. I need to put something like that together. We had, I forgot to mention, we did have the strategic. We had the strategic meeting on the 11th. Yesterday, and we had a smaller turnout than we had the prior day, right? So we had maybe 35 people there. And so I think the next one is May 9th is the next one. So I will have something written up before May 9th on that community advisory committee.
Advisory, yeah.
Right,
I
okay,
have a second question.
all right.
I think it was last week, someone is taking over Kathy Winecroft's
Yes,
position,
she
and
was
there was
there.
an email supposed to be sent, so we know who it is. I never got it.
She was there last night.
I know I wasn't there though.
Mary, yeah.
Is there
Mary
a
Ann
way we
Friedman.
can just get the name and phone number or contact for the new field rep?
Yeah. Did you, are you on?
We didn't get the email. I
We
thought
didn't get
only you.
Oh, I got the mail. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, good. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll forward that email to all of you and get that to you. Yep, okay. Anything else?
I have two old ones. And speaking of the strategic session, it was very disappointing to see so many less people. I have a couple ideas, similar to what we were just talking about for the budget. We need to put out paper flyers in everybody's backpacks. I know we're trying to be more eco-friendly, but we have been doing great saving the trees. But if the PTA, whom I love, can give us a paper flyer about a bake sale, which is what I pay attention to as a mom of an elementary school student, we need to put paper flyers in everybody's backpacks at a minimum. And I would like us to consider offering free pizza at the next one. Sadly, we need an incentive to get people there. And if we need to use Title I, what are they called? Like funds for parties, for lack of a better word, we get what, $1,000 we can use for food and beverage for Title I. Why can we turn this into a Title I thing, or can we use other money? If we spend $300 on pizza, we will get more people there, in addition to blasting it out all over the place. So is that possible to do paper flyers by any chance for the next strategic session? There were a lot of people that didn't even know about it that I talked to. Is that possible?
Well, first, Jim, how is that, is everybody thinking that that's a?
Does that help for
wise thing to
elementary
do, or-
moms?
That'd be great.
I don't know. I'd rather see it go out electronically, maybe on
No.
other sites,
Both.
as Natalie suggested. The paper flyers get stuffed on the bottom of the backpack and get lost. In many cases.
I don't know, I disagree.
You're very diligent in going through the
We're-
backpack, but everybody's busy and it might stay in the backpack until after the meeting. But if
Do you
we
have a-
could put
do you
it
have a
out in
thought about
other.
But yeah, but all we did was a PDF and nobody came. So
What about a pop-up? on the
Anybody,
parent
anybody else
portal?
about the flyer and all that stuff?
I'm okay with it if we're selective, if we're using it for one or two things in a year. The Wayside auction flyers just came home, they're bright blue, it's hanging on my fridge, so I don't forget about it.
Exactly.
I don't know, there's something to be said for paper.
Anybody have any comments about that? More? Jim, you have a thought about that?
I would be happy to send out paper flyers.
That'd be great.
Amy, do you have a thought about it?
We could throw,
I don't have either way.
Either way,
what about pizza? Can we offer dinner at the
I
next one?
support paper flyers. I will not support pizza.
I agree. I know.
Use taxpayer funds, I believe, for that. I don't believe we can use taxpayer funds.
All right, so I'll work on getting donated food,
Or
perhaps.
would like to donate some pieces.
But can't we also, we can't use Title I,
I do not believe so.
because we're using it on food for other stuff, you mean? The Title I?
It's not a Title I function.
Correct. We definitely cannot use Title I funds.
I didn't think you were listening, Kelly.
Show of hands for
I've
the,
been listening the whole time.
show of hands for the flyer to go out in paper for the night.
Flyer only.
Flyer only.
With a coupon for a pizza.
I'm gonna get it donated food. I'll work on that.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that was the first thing. A second thing, for old business, I think I asked this last week, is it possible to get the URL links to the articles, the news articles that have been, Ms. Burke mentioned about it? I would like to read them. I missed them, so I would love to have the articles that she put in her report. So is it possible to get the URLs on those articles?
What, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
At the last meeting, the PR report said, here are a bunch of news articles where we have been mentioned.
Like
And
the Today paper. that-
yeah, there
Oh,
were 1, 2,
oh.
3, 4, 5, 6 or something at least. It would be
Okay.
nice,
Marion, do you have access
it
to
would be
those?
nice to read those.
No, I think Fran.
Fran?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to Fran.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you. That's it for old.
okay. New business, Natalie. Wait a second, everybody was done with old business? Okay, new business, Natalie.
Pizza.
I haven't seen it on the agenda yet, but there has been a lot of chatter about new health and physical education standards, a lot of misinformation. So I would like to request that the board get a presentation on that, what they actually are, what's actually happening, and what is complete nonsense that was made up on the internet.
Jim, do you want to make a comment about that?
Sure, Jeff.
Sure.
So yeah, we're planning that for next month to, Ms. Weldon is putting together a presentation and we'll discuss what the standards are, what our process is in developing curriculum. She'll go over that. And if she didn't know it, she knows it now. So now, we've discussed this and
Awesome.
we've discussed it and
Okay,
I
I
think it's a
appreciate that.
very
Thank
good
you.
idea.
Yeah, we thought it would also be a good thing to educate the board,
Sure.
educate the
Yes,
community
the board needs
and
to-
also, and be aware.
Yeah, I mean, these standards aren't new,
Yeah.
you know, they were adopted probably 2 years ago. It's just that they're scheduled to be implemented now finally in September. So it's certainly come more to the forefront, yes.
Great. John,
Does the board have the ability to, or sorry, let me correct that. Does the administration have the ability to not abide by any of those standards that are included in that document from the state?
It's my understanding, many years of doing this, that the New Jersey student learning standards are mandated standards that have to be followed in the school districts. We're monitored for that. Part of our QSAC monitoring is, does our curricula reflect? There are many laws related to, many laws that have been passed that are part of the health and physical education standards, you know, things like, you know, teaching kids about sexual assaults, you know, date violence, things like that, that have to be taught to kids. So I've never known the New Jersey student learning standards to be negotiable. So.
I have a comment.
Sure.
I would just like to direct the board ahead of that meeting and any parents to read some of these standards. I think that we are definitely going to disagree on certain things. But some of these standards include things being taught to first graders that I will not support.
No.
It is true, and I have read it myself, and I will point you to the standards. It is true. I have read the standard, and so if we would like to have this discussion now, I'm happy to. There are things that are going to be taught to first graders that I will not support. There are things that are going to be taught to 3rd to 5th graders that I will not support. And so I am I'm questioning what is going on right now with some of these New Jersey state learning standards. And so I absolutely, yeah, I just would like to say, I hope that we all do look into this and that we are very informed about what is going to be taught in our schools soon, because it does give some worry to me.
Okay, I'm sorry, can I just?
Please, please.
So while the standards are just that, the standards, where there is, I think some interpretation is in how they're delivered and how they're carried out, right? So school district, there's nothing that prescribes exactly how a particular standard needs to be done within a school district. The Department of Education will sometimes put out sample lessons and sample things that are not requirements. So it's up to each individual school district to decide how a standard is taught and assessed, right? So that is something that is a local decision. I think when Ms. Walden does her presentation, I think that will shed a lot of light on, the topic, and I think we can all be more informed, and the board can be able to make more informed judgments about it.
I look forward to it.
Great. Thanks for bringing it up, Natalie.
Can I-
Yep, sure.
I mean, we already have opinions clearly. So will some sample lessons or curriculum be included in that so we can?
Ours specifically?
I think we.
Well,
need
we're
some
still
of that.
working on it.
Yeah,
so
but I
the-
think
so
we,
sample.
it can't just be like this. We can all read the standards. I think
Right.
the issue that parents have is how is it, what you just said, the part that's up for interpretation is how they're implemented. So we can't just do a presentation without addressing that key
Right.
piece.
I'm not sure if by next month that's the timeline in which they'll be ready. However,
I
of
think we
course.
need at least one.
We
Okay,
should make,
we'll see what we can do.
make a sample.
But also remember that all curricula comes before the board for final approval. So there certainly would never be something that would be implemented in terms of curriculum or it has to be board approved and it has to be at a public meeting. But we will try work to provide some examples of some things, if not the complete, I don't want to sit here and promise by next month we'll have. a full
And I'm not
curriculum,
asking for the.
But maybe we
conclusion
can have
anyway.
some portions or
We need
something.
samples because it's an issue and this is not like 2 + 2.
And could the samples be for the younger grades? Because from
Well, I think that seems
What-
to be where most of
Yes.
the issue.
what is
most of the
age
concern
appropriate
lies,
and the
right?
concerns regarding kindergarten through 4th grade.
I mean, what I do want to say is obviously, some of these issues are things that have been taught in health and physical education for many, many years. Perhaps not to as young of children, and perhaps, some of the things that are being discussed are certainly newer interpretations of what should be taught. But I have complete faith in our educators here in the district, our health and physical education educators, that they will, and the supervision and our, Ms. Weldon, who oversees it all, that we're going to be able to provide instruction that meets the standards, but that is age appropriate and sensitive to I think I don't know if I want to say the will of our community, but the sort of where our community is, right? And the tolerance of our community and the understanding of our community. So I have great faith in our educators will be able to do that. And I would hope that, the community, I think the community can trust in our ability to do that successfully. That being said, I understand, why there's concern. It's new, and with many new things, there is often concern or misunderstanding or a projection of what may occur. And so I think as much as we can show what will occur, I think that will help alleviate a lot of concerns.
Great, thanks. Anybody else for new business?
I just have a question.
Sure.
Is CUSAC coming into our district this week
This week, no.
or next, after spring break?
Well, as a matter of fact, they're doing some work during spring break. They're coming in.
During spring.
Yes, well, they wanted to visit some of the schools when students were not present. So I know we're very excited that on the Friday of spring break, they're going to be in visiting some schools as preliminary visits. The actual visit itself, the official visit will be May 3rd.
Yes, Alex.
The school report cards came out this week,
Performance report.
performance reports. We didn't update it to our
I think that's
site yet, right?
going
That's
up. It's-
coming.
I think it should be up very soon.
Okay. I know we didn't have the
It's not
assessment.
already up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of blanks, obviously, because we didn't have the assessments.
Yeah,
But are we going to have any sort of a presentation, or is it basically what the last thing that Kelly showed us?
Much of it is that. We haven't typically over the years done a presentation on the performance report. We do have to talk about things like, how many students graduated via which, as part of new guidelines that have come out, how many graduated by the NJSLA, how many graduated by alternative measures. So, we have to do that. So I think maybe as part of that, we could certainly provide some highlights.
Okay.
There really wasn't a lot.
There's not, yeah.
One thing that really, that was, I think, kind of interesting, that wasn't really part of that report, it was just something just anecdotally that came out this week, is the incredible decrease in SAT participation. Typically, it's about 70% statewide, and it's in the 40% last year, because so many more schools are going test optional. So fewer and fewer students. I think that the students, and actually the state averages went up, and I think a main reason for that is because a lot of the kids who took it were those students who were looking to get into the most competitive schools that perhaps have not gone test optional, right? So, it's an interesting piece to it.
Kelly says they are up
Okay.
already.
Okay. perfect.
Thanks, Cal.
I knew that.
Kelly, Miss Weldon.
They were on the way, yeah.
Okay, so I only had two, so that was my first one. And this time last year, we obviously were expanding our summer program because of the pandemic, but we were in the throes of summer hiring, April of last year. So where do we stand on expanded summer offerings? And you don't have, this doesn't need to be a major thing. Maybe you can give us an update another time, or even to me in an email if you'd like. But
Yeah, typically we wait for the budget to be approved just to make sure we have the ability to pay for it. So if we want summer programs, I'd vote yes for that budget. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
Okay, and then I lied. I did secure pizza for the last. Pizza will be donated for the last strategic session.
Great.
Just a phone call, man.
Gino's got it.
I'm going to, yeah, I'll finalize how many they're going to, but it is an Ocean Township pizza facility that is very supportive of our schools. So I'll wait.
Any other new business? No? Okay, we'll move to public comment. So anybody from the audience like to make a comment about any topic at this time? Anybody here? Nope. Ms. Conway, anybody on the line like to make any comment on any topic?
No, President Weinstein, there are no commenters.
Okay, great. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. Great. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone.